Moving on to Somalia, aid agencies continue to warn over the deteriorating humanitarian situation there. The UN's Children's Agency, UNICEF, says hundreds of children have died in nutrition centers across Somalia in the first 7 months of this year. The report comes just a day after the global body warned that parts of the country will be hit by famine in the coming months. The Horn of Africa region is facing a fifth consecutive failed rainy season. The situation has been made worse by attacks by militant group Al-Shabaab, who have been targeting people displaced by drought. UNICEF says disease outbreaks are also increasing among children. There have been around 13,000 suspected measles cases reported among children, many of them under 5, in recent months. Financial aid for Somalia has increased recently, and the United Nations appeal for $1.46 billion is now 67% funded. But aid officials warn that more financial support is still needed.
Around 730 children are reported to have died in nutrition sites across the country. And to put it into perspective, this is less than 1% of the children who were admitted and cured and discharged. We are seeing also increase of the number of children who are unaccompanied or separated from their families, which put them at protection risk. And this number of children has increased by 80% just this year.
Let's get you more on this story. We have Mohammed Kahie joining us live from Mogadishu. Mohammed, disturbing and heartbreaking report there from the UNICEF. Hundreds of children dying in nutrition centers. What more can you tell us?
Well, Somalia continues to pay a heavy price in one of the longest droughts ever in its history. We have seen that almost 1 million people have been displaced already, and hundreds of people have lost their lives. Unfortunately, according to UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, more than 700 people have already lost their lives. And the number could be more than that because some of them have not been admitted to hospitals and they are away from these health centers. Humanitarian agencies continue to try and scale up the humanitarian assistance, but there is lack of huge underfunding. UNICEF says that there is a risk of outbreak of disease related to malnutrition, like measles and diarrhea. And there is, the UN humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, was here this week, and he said that more than 1.5 million children are at risk of acute malnutrition, and there is need for urgent response by the humanitarian agencies and their donor countries to scale up response. He said that if the situation continues like this, within the next month there will be a famine in Somalia. So that is how the situation is. And this country, there has been almost 4 delayed rainy seasons, and most of the communities living here in Somalia, the majority of the population, are farmers and livestock keepers. And consistent delayed rains has impacted on their lives. And a lot of people are coming out from where they lived and lost their livelihood and coming to big cities. And this is becoming a big challenge for both the government and the humanitarian agencies.
Right. And speaking of government, Mohammed, what is it doing? What's the response from government? And do we know of any ongoing interventions to save lives?
Well, we have seen that, personally witnessed an extensive reporting on this, that the Somali government with its international partners in humanitarian agencies, they have tried to set up centers in the big cities like Mogadishu and Beledweyne, and also in Galkayo, where children with acute malnutrition are provided with nutrition boosters to try to save their lives. We've seen that the humanitarian agencies also trying to reach people with emergency food assistance provided by the international community after appeal by the Somalia's government to its international partners. Efforts are going on. The UN humanitarian chief, who was here in the country a few days ago, has called for more assistance from donor countries to try to help and save the situation on the ground, because as rains continue to delay, the number of people being affected by this drought situation in Somalia are becoming more, and it's becoming a big challenge for both the government and also humanitarian agencies to try to help them because of the scarce resources they have.
All right. And finally, Mohammed, The UN has also been warning of looming famine there in Somalia. You've talked about the UN agencies being underfunded, but as of now, is there any humanitarian assistance coming in from those aid agencies?
Well, as I've said it before, the UN humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, was here and he visited one of the most affected areas by the drought, and that is Baidoa, which is in southwest state of Somalia. He witnessed his first-hand about malnourished children and people being displaced by this drought, and near Baidoa, which is one of the most affected areas. He met with government officials, including the President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, to try and see how the international community led by the United Nations and the Somalia's government led by the Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud can try and coordinate humanitarian assistance to help these people affected by the drought. But efforts are already ongoing on the ground. But of course, one of the biggest challenges that the UN humanitarian agencies, in coordination with local Somali organizations, is funding. And that is why the UN humanitarian chief, Martin Griffiths, was here to try and advocate for more funding, and because of the dire humanitarian situation in the country.